Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are diving deep, really deep, into the neuroscience of memory. We're going to talk about how your brain creates, stores, and, even rewrites your past. This is one of those topics that honestly might just change how you think about your own life story. So, have you ever wondered about this? It's a super common thing, right? You can remember a single moment from when you were a kid with perfect clarity, or maybe the lyrics to some song you haven't heard in ages. But what you had for lunch yesterday? Poof, gone. Well, the answer to that little mystery is all about the incredible, really complex machinery in our heads that's constantly deciding what's worth keeping and what's just trash. Okay, so to really understand how this all works, we first need to pop open the hood and look at the brain's specialized memory toolkit. Because here's the thing, memory isn't just one single thing. Nope. It's actually a whole collection of different systems, and each one has a very specific job to do. So at the highest level, your long-term memory is split into two big categories. First, you've got your declarative memory. This is all the stuff you can consciously call up and, declare. Facts, events, the story of your life. Then you've got non-declarative memory. This is the stuff that just happens. It works in the background. Think about riding a bike. You can't really explain how you stay balanced, you just do it. It's the difference between knowing that something is true and knowing how to do something. All right, let's zoom in on that declarative memory for a second, the conscious stuff, because even that splits into two different types. So think about this. Do you remember the feeling of your first day of school? That specific memory, that's your episodic memory. It's your personal movie reel. But do you know that a school is a place for learning? That's your semantic memory. It's the encyclopedia in your head, full of general knowledge. See the difference? One is your personal story, the other is just facts about the world. But wait, before any of this stuff gets locked away for the long term, it has to pass through what we call working memory. You can think of it as your brain's mental scratch pad, or its RAM, if you will. There's this little director in there, the central executive, and it's basically juggling everything. It's processing what you're hearing right now, what you're seeing on the screen, and at the same time, it's pulling up old memories to help you make sense of it all. It's this incredibly busy, real-time workbench where new memories get put together for the very first time. So now we've got the basic toolkit down. Let's follow the journey of a single memory, right from the very beginning. How exactly does an experience, something that's happening to you right now, transform into something that becomes a part of you forever? Well, it all kicks off with a process called encoding. This is the absolute first step. You can think of your brain like a super powerful computer, but one that doesn't natively understand things like sights or sounds or smells. So encoding is the critical job of translating everything you experience, what you see, what you hear, what you feel, into the only language the brain does get, the language of neural signals. Seriously, without this translation step, a memory is dead on arrival. It can't even begin to form. But here's the catch. Not all encoding is created equal. So what makes one memory stick and another one fade? It really boils down to a few key things. First up, attention. Simple as that. If you're not paying attention, your brain doesn't even bother hitting the record button. Next, emotional significance. An event that gets your heart pounding or makes you laugh like crazy, your brain slaps a VIP tag on that one, basically screaming, hey, this one matters. And finally, good old repetition. The more you go over something, the deeper that neural code gets etched into your brain. Okay, so a memory has been encoded, but it's not safe yet. At this point, it's actually really fragile. The next crucial stage is where that flimsy memory gets forged, like steel, into something that can last for years or even a lifetime. And this process has a name: consolidation. And if we zoom way down to the level of individual brain cells, this forging process is happening through something called long-term potentiation, or LTP for short. It's kind of wild. When you learn something new, specific neurons fire off signals at the exact same time. LTP is the mechanism that then physically strengthens the connection, the synapse between those neurons. The highway analogy is perfect for this. It's like turning a barely there dirt path in the woods into a super fast paved 6-lane highway. The more that path gets used, the stronger and faster the connection becomes. And this whole idea is summed up in one of the most famous sayings in all of neuroscience, from a psychologist named Donald Hebb. You've probably heard it. Neurons that fire together wire together. It's so much more than just a catchy rhyme. It is the fundamental rule for how our brains learn and physically change. Every single time you remember something, every time you practice a skill, you are literally reinforcing the physical wiring that holds that piece of information. But that leads to a puzzle.
right? How does a totally random, insignificant detail get locked into our memory? Well, a really cool hypothesis called synaptic tagging and capture gives us a clue. So imagine this. You walk into a coffee shop and you kind of vaguely notice the song that's playing. That's a weak event. It creates a temporary little tag on that synapse. But then, a minute later, your phone rings with the best news of your life. Bam! Your brain gets flooded with these pay attention proteins. And what do those proteins do? They go looking for any recently tagged synapses and they lock them down, they make them permanent. And just like that, a totally random song is now forever tied to one of your life's biggest moments.
All right, so a memory has been encoded, the forging process is underway, but here's where it gets interesting. Some of the most critical work for making that memory stick happens when we're not even awake. It's time to talk about the brain's incredibly busy and super important night shift. What happens when we sleep? You know, we tend to think of sleep as our brain just shutting off, but that couldn't be further from the truth. While you're sleeping, your brain is actively working, acting like a master librarian for your memories. It cycles through these different phases. You've got the deep, quiet NREM sleep, and then the active, super dreamy REM sleep. And this cycle isn't random at all. It's like the brain is running a very sophisticated software program, and each stage has a totally unique job in sorting through the day's events and deciding what's worth saving. And this is where the organization is just brilliant. The brain uses these different sleep stages to handle different types of memories. During that deep NRM sleep, that's like the main file transfer. The brain is taking all the facts and events from the day and moving them from temporary storage into the long-term hard drive. But then when you hit REM sleep, the focus shifts. Now it's about skills and emotions. It's fine-tuning how to swing that new tennis serve, or it's working through the feelings of an argument you had. It's an unbelievably organized system for curating who we are.
So we've walked through how a memory is born and how it's solidified into something lasting. But this final piece of the puzzle, honestly, it's a bit of a mind bender. It challenges everything we think we know. We assume that once a memory is in there, it's set in stone, right? Permanent. Well, it turns out the answer is probably no.
This game-changing idea is called reconsolidation. For the longest time, the thinking was that memory works like a library book. You check it out, you read it, and you put it back on the shelf, totally unchanged. But the reality? Wow, it is so much stranger. It turns out, every time you recall a memory, it's not like reading a book at all. It's like opening a Word doc. The memory becomes fragile, malleable, it's in edit mode. And your current mood or new things you've learned since can subtly change that memory before you hit save again. Our memories are not static recordings. They are living, breathing, evolving scripts. And that brings us to a final, pretty startling question. If our memories can be tweaked and edited, even just a little bit, every single time we recall them, then how reliable are we as the narrators of our own past? Think about it. Is your identity, who you think you are, built on a solid, factual record of what happened? Or is it built on a story that you are constantly and unconsciously rewriting every single day? Something to think about. Thanks for joining us on The Explainer.